Before we begin, I want you to do something. Close your eyes for just a second. Think about the last time you were deep in thought, waiting for someone, feeling nervous, or simply sitting quietly by yourself. Where did your hand naturally go? Your hair, your neck, your wrist, your lips, or perhaps your feet kept moving without you noticing. Whatever came to mind first, don't change it, because your first instinct is often your unconscious speaking before your logical mind has time to interfere. What you just chose may reveal far more than a simple habit. Psychologists have long observed that our unconscious often expresses itself through tiny movements before our conscious mind even understands what we're feeling. In other words, your body sometimes knows the truth before your thoughts do. And according to Carl Jung's approach to analytical psychology, those unconscious patterns are rarely meaningless. They can quietly point toward the deeper psychological forces shaping who we are. Today, we'll explore 5 unconscious gestures and the hidden feminine archetype each one may reflect. But here's the surprising part. The body part you touch most often may not reveal who you are today. It may reveal the version of yourself your soul has been quietly trying to become. So keep your answer in mind. You may discover something about yourself you've never had words for before. Carl Jung believed the unconscious rarely speaks through logic. Instead, it speaks through symbols, through dreams, through intuition, and sometimes through the body itself. Long before you realize you're anxious, your body has already begun to respond. Your body often knows first. Your mind simply catches up later. That's why today's journey isn't really about body language. It's about recognizing the quiet messages your unconscious has been sending you all along. Before we continue, close your eyes once more. Think about the last time you were deep in thought, listening to someone, waiting quietly, or simply lost in your own world. Where did your hand naturally go? Hold on to that answer. If your hand naturally finds your hair, you may belong to the most hopeful feminine archetype, the Maiden. Let me make a prediction. People often see you as composed, friendly, easy to talk to. You probably smile more than most people realize. But underneath that calm exterior, there's a softer part of you that very few people ever truly see. If your fingers naturally drift toward your hair, twirling it, adjusting it, brushing it behind your ear, even when you're alone, this is often more than a habit. It's one of the body's subtle ways of creating comfort, almost like reassuring yourself without realizing you're doing it. Most people assume this gesture simply means nervousness, but psychologically, that's only the surface. What it often reveals is a longing for emotional safety, not because you're weak, but because your heart still believes softness is worth protecting. This is the energy of the Maiden. The Maiden isn't childish. She isn't naive. She simply refuses to let life's disappointments completely harden her. Even after being hurt, she still wants to believe people can be kind. She still hopes tomorrow can be different. And in today's world, that's rarer than most people realize. Your greatest strength isn't innocence, it's openness. You still allow yourself to care deeply, to become excited, to dream about possibilities. Many people slowly build emotional walls as they grow older. You never stop building windows instead. But every archetype carries a shadow. The Maiden sometimes mistakes familiarity for safety. You may hesitate before taking opportunities, stay in situations longer than you should, or keep waiting until you feel completely ready, a moment that rarely arrives. Deep down, it's not failure you're afraid of. It's losing the feeling of security you've worked so hard to create. But here's the quiet truth. Your unconscious may already know. The life you're searching for isn't waiting inside your comfort zone. It's waiting just beyond it. Growth doesn't ask you to abandon your softness. It asks you to trust that your softness can survive change. Perhaps that's why your hand keeps returning to your hair, not because you're uncertain, but because somewhere inside, your heart is reminding you that courage doesn't always look loud. Sometimes it looks gentle. And surprisingly, the next archetype couldn't be more different, because she isn't searching for safety. She's searching for something far more intimate, to be truly seen. If your hand naturally finds your neck, you may carry the energy of the most emotionally connected feminine archetype, the lover. Have you ever noticed your hand resting lightly against your neck while you're listening, thinking, or sharing something personal? Of all the places on the body, the neck is one of the most vulnerable. Instinctively exposing it is something humans usually do only when a part of them feels emotionally safe, which makes this unconscious habit surprisingly revealing. Here's my prediction. You probably don't trust people easily. You may appear warm, even confident, but you don't open your inner world to just anyone. Most people only know the version of you that feels safe to share. Very few ever meet the person underneath. If touching your neck feels natural, you likely carry the energy of the lover. Now, this isn't simply about romance. In Jungian psychology, the lover represents our capacity for emotional closeness, the desire to feel deeply connected, not just admired, not just appreciated, but truly understood. Most people think people with this archetype are simply emotional, but that's a misunderstanding. You aren't looking for constant attention. You're looking for genuine presence. There's a difference. You'd rather have one conversation where someone truly listens than 100 compliments that never reach your heart. That's your gift. When someone earns your trust, you don't love halfway. You listen deeply. You remember small details. You notice emotions other people overlook. You create a kind of emotional safety that makes people feel they can finally stop pretending. It's a beautiful gift. But it also carries a hidden challenge. Sometimes you become so focused on protecting a relationship that you slowly stop protecting yourself. You compromise your needs. You ignore your own feelings, not because you don't matter, but because connection matters so much to you. The shadow of the lover isn't loving too much. It's forgetting that your own heart deserves the same care you so naturally give everyone else. Your next chapter isn't about becoming less loving. It's about learning that real intimacy begins with honesty, including honesty with yourself. Because the strongest relationships are never built on losing yourself. They're built on bringing your whole self into the relationship. Maybe that's why your hand keeps finding your neck. Your unconscious isn't asking for someone to rescue you. It's asking for a place where you no longer have to hide. If your hand naturally finds your wrist, you may carry the energy of the most authentic feminine archetype, the free spirit. Here's something you may have never noticed. When people genuinely feel comfortable, their bodies naturally become more open. Their shoulders relax, their palms turn upward, their wrists become exposed. It's one of the quietest signs of trust the body can give. So let me make another prediction. You've probably been told you're different. Maybe you've never completely fit into other people's expectations, not because you were trying to stand out, but because pretending to be someone else has always felt exhausting. If you often rub your wrist, lightly hold your forearm, or naturally expose the inside of your wrist while talking or thinking. You may carry the energy of the free spirit. Most people misunderstand this archetype. They assume openness means innocence, or that independence means avoiding commitment. But neither is true. Your openness isn't carelessness, it's courage. Some people protect themselves by building walls. You protect yourself by remaining authentic. Even after disappointment, there's a part of you that still chooses honesty over performance. That's incredibly rare. People often feel strangely comfortable around you, not because you always know the right words, but because you never make them feel they have to pretend. Your presence quietly gives others permission to become themselves. That's your gift. But every gift has a shadow. Sometimes your desire for freedom becomes a fear of being confined. You may hesitate before making long-term commitments, not because you don't care, but because you're afraid of losing yourself. Deep down, your greatest fear isn't closeness. It's becoming trapped inside a life that no longer feels true. Here's what your unconscious may already understand. Freedom isn't the absence of roots. Real freedom comes from choosing where your roots belong. When you choose people, work, and dreams that genuinely reflect who you are, commitment stops feeling like a cage. It becomes a home. Perhaps that's why your hand keeps returning to your wrist. Your unconscious isn't asking for endless escape. It's reminding you that your truest self deserves a life that fits. But the next archetype is almost the opposite. She isn't searching for freedom. She's searching for permission. Permission to fully express everything she already feels. If your hand naturally finds your lips, you may carry the energy of the most expressive feminine archetype, the Seductress.
I think.
Before I explain this one, let me clear up one common misunderstanding. The Seductress isn't necessarily the woman who attracts the most attention. She's the woman who gives herself permission to feel fully alive. There's a difference. If you catch yourself touching your lips while listening, thinking, or becoming emotionally engaged in a conversation, your unconscious may be pointing toward this archetype. Let me make another prediction. You've probably felt misunderstood at different points in your life. People may describe you as expressive, passionate, or intense. Yet inside, you sometimes wonder if you're too much, too emotional, too ambitious, too sensitive, too expressive. So you quietly learn to tone yourself down, not because you want to, but because it feels easier than being misunderstood. This is the hidden struggle of the Seductress. Contrary to what many people believe, this archetype isn't rooted in appearance. It's rooted in aliveness. You don't simply experience life. You immerse yourself in it. Beauty inspires you. Music moves you. Meaning matters. You naturally bring emotion into everything you love. That's your greatest strength. Your presence has a quiet magnetism, not because you're trying to attract attention, but because people are drawn toward authenticity, towards someone who isn't afraid to feel. But your shadow appears when your sense of worth becomes connected to how others respond to you. You may begin questioning yourself whenever your efforts go unnoticed, or wonder whether you're enough when someone fails to appreciate you. Yet your value was never meant to be measured by someone else's attention. Your light doesn't become brighter because someone notices it. It was already there. Your next stage of growth isn't becoming more desirable. It's becoming more unapologetic. To create, to love, to dream, to express yourself, without constantly asking whether it's acceptable first. Perhaps that's why your fingers return to your lips. Your unconscious isn't asking for approval. It's reminding you that your voice, your creativity, and your desires were never meant to stay silent. And finally, we arrive at the archetype that often surprises people the most, because while the others reveal what your heart longs for, This last one reveals what your instincts have known all along. If your feet never seem to stay still, you may carry the energy of the most intuitive feminine archetype, the wild woman. Think about this for a moment. When you're excited, your feet move before your smile appears. When you're ready to leave, your feet often point toward the exit before you've consciously made the decision. The body has always understood direction, long before the mind catches up. If your feet constantly tap, shift, cross, and uncross, or your shoes seem to slip on and off without you realizing it, your unconscious may be expressing the energy of the wild woman. Here's my prediction. You often sense things before you can explain them. You walk into a room and immediately notice the atmosphere. You meet someone and instinctively feel whether something is genuine. Sometimes you even know a decision is wrong, long before you can explain why. Most people call this intuition, but they often ignore it. You don't, at least, not completely. This archetype carries one of the deepest forms of intelligence, instinct, the ability to notice patterns before logic catches up. Your greatest strength isn't certainty, it's perception. You often recognize truths while they're still invisible to everyone else. That's why people sometimes come to you for advice, even if they can't explain why they trust your judgment. But here's your shadow. Ironically, you don't always trust yourself. You collect more information, seek more reassurance, analyze every possibility, until the answer your instincts gave you at the very beginning becomes buried beneath overthinking. Your unconscious already knows something your mind is still debating. The next chapter of your life won't come from thinking harder. It will come from trusting yourself sooner. Perhaps that's why your feet keep moving. Not because you're restless, but because a deeper part of you already knows where your life wants to go. Sometimes, the soul starts walking before the mind decides to follow. So, which archetype felt most like you? Was it the maiden, whose quiet strength comes from protecting hope? The lover, who longs to be deeply understood? The free spirit, who values authenticity above expectation? The seductress, who carries the courage to express life fully? Or the wild woman, whose instincts quietly point her toward truth? And if you found yourself relating to more than one, that's completely natural. We're not made from just one story. Different archetypes become stronger during different seasons of life. Sometimes the maiden leads, sometimes the wild woman takes over, sometimes the lover simply needs to be reminded not to lose herself. What matters isn't choosing the right archetype, it's noticing which one your unconscious wanted you to hear today. Because here's something worth remembering. Your body has been speaking long before you learned the language to describe what you feel. Every unconscious gesture, every quiet habit may be less about anxiety or distraction than a small glimpse into your inner world. Not a diagnosis, not a definition, but an invitation to become a little more aware of yourself. Perhaps that's why self-discovery doesn't always begin with changing who we are. Sometimes it begins by finally paying attention to who we've quietly been all along. Sometimes your unconscious whispers long before your mind understands. If this resonated with you, I'd love to hear from you. Which body part did you choose? And did your archetype surprise you? Share your result in the comments. I genuinely enjoy reading your thoughts, interpretations, and personal experiences. If you know someone who would enjoy discovering their hidden patterns, share this video with them. You never know what they might uncover about themselves. And if you enjoyed this journey, a simple lets me know you'd like to see more videos like this. If you're curious about the hidden patterns behind personality, relationships, and the unconscious mind, consider subscribing and join me on the next journey of self-discovery. There are many more discoveries waiting for you.